The calm before the storm, Koresh Vathal had fought in more battles than he could count. He had seen war in the blackness of space, in the burning skies of dying planets, and in the dust of shattered moons. He had faced enemies that breathed fire, that moved faster than light, that had no fear of death. He had commanded fleets so large that their shadows could cover entire continents. War to him was not a mystery. It was familiar, predictable, almost routine. So when the Galactic Council summoned him to lead the expedition to a small blue planet called Earth, he did not expect anything different. Earth, the report said, was young in space terms. Its people had only touched the edge of the galaxy a few decades ago. Their weapons were crude by Council standards. Their fleets were small. Their colonies were scattered and weak, easy prey. Koresh's orders were simple: escort a show of strength, force the humans to accept Council law, and make them pay for what the Council called unauthorized expansion. It sounded like another political war, nothing new, but from the first moment his fleet entered the Sol system, something felt wrong. The humans did not panic. They did not send diplomats. They did not even hide. Instead, they went silent. Not a word, not a signal, not a single plea for mercy. The only transmissions they sent were short bursts of encrypted data no one in Koresh's fleet could decode. It was as if they were talking only to each other, preparing for something unseen. Koresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Spear of Vera, his 4 eyes scanning the holographic star map. Dozens of alien ships surrounded the small blue world. It looked fragile from here, almost delicate, like a jewel floating in the dark. "Commander," his second-in-command said, bowing slightly, "Council scouts have scanned the planet. No defensive fleet in orbit, only a few stations. Primitive." Koresh nodded slowly. "And yet, they do not seem afraid." The officer hesitated. "Perhaps they are too proud to show fear. Or," Koresh said, his voice low, "they are hiding something." The first sign came minutes later. "Unidentified signal incoming from Earth," the comms officer called out. Koresh turned toward the main display. The transmission opened without introduction, without any formal code. A human face appeared, male, middle-aged, wearing a simple black uniform. His eyes were sharp, his expression unreadable. He did not bow. He did not smile. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Fleet," the man said in perfect galactic standard. "You are trespassing in Sol space. You will leave immediately." Koresh raised a brow ridge. "One man dares speak for an entire planet," he murmured. The human continued, his voice steady, almost calm. "This is your only warning. No threats, no long speech, just those words." And then the transmission cut off. The bridge fell into silence. Some of the alien officers laughed. Others frowned. "That was not a surrender," Koresh said finally. "No, Commander," his second-in-command replied. "It was a threat." Koresh felt a strange sensation crawl through him. In all his wars, he had learned to read enemies by their voices, their eyes, their posture. This man, this human, did not sound desperate or afraid. He sounded certain. "Commander," the sensor officer reported suddenly, "a ship has entered the field, small by our standards, old design. It appears to be human." Koresh turned back to the star map. A single human warship glided into view. Its hull was scarred and worn. It carried no visible heavy weapons. It did not even raise shields. "What are they doing?" the officer asked, confused. "It's suicide to face our fleet alone." Koresh stared at the ship. It moved with a kind of confidence. He could not explain. "Bring us closer," he ordered. As the alien flagship approached, the human ship did not move away. It simply drifted forward, slow, deliberate. The comms flickered again, and the same human captain appeared. "I warned you," Captain Ward said. Koresh leaned forward. "What will you do, human? You cannot defeat us alone." Ward's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "Alone?" He shook his head. "You have no idea where you are." Before Koresh could respond, the signal cut again. The alien bridge crew scrambled, trying to scan for reinforcements, but nothing appeared. The human ship simply remained there waiting, like a predator watching its prey. Koresh felt the unease in his crew. Veterans who had faced death countless times were shifting uncomfortably, their eyes flicking toward the human ship as if it were more dangerous than its size suggested. "Commander," the weapons officer said quietly, "shall we test them?" Koresh hesitated. Something inside him, something old, instinctive, told him to hold back, but his pride would not allow it. "Fire a single plasma round," he ordered. "Let us see how the humans react." The order went out. A bolt of bright blue energy tore through space toward the human vessel. For a heartbeat, it seemed the humans would take the hit. But then, the human ship vanished. No warp signature, no jump flash. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Alarms blared. "Commander, they're behind us." Koresh turned, and his blood ran cold. The human ship hung directly behind his flagship, perfectly positioned for a kill shot. And over the comms, a new sound came through. It was not a voice. It was music, slow, deep, and heavy. A human song. A warning. The ship that shouldn't exist. The haunting music echoed through the bridge of the Spear of Vera, sinking into every corner like smoke. It was slow, steady, almost mournful, but beneath it was a rhythm that felt dangerous, like a heartbeat before a fight. Koresh stood frozen, his four eyes fixed on the human ship, now hovering. Behind them. No ship that small should have been able to move that fast, not without leaving a trace. And yet, the scanners showed nothing. No energy spike, no heat trail, no jump signature. It was as if the ship had simply stepped from one place to another. "Commander," his second-in-command whispered, "that is impossible. Even the high warp rings leave a signature." Koresh didn't answer. His instincts, honed by centuries of battle, were screaming at him. The humans weren't just hiding new technology, they were hiding something far more dangerous: intent. He gestured to the comms officer. "Open a channel." A moment later, the human captain appeared again, calm as ever. "You fired first," Captain Ward said quietly. "We will respond next time." The transmission ended before Koresh could speak. The alien officers began talking at once. "They are bluffing," one shouted. "No single ship can match a fleet," another insisted. But their voices were laced with unease, and Koresh could feel it. Fear was already spreading. He silenced them with a raised claw. "They want us to underestimate them," he said slowly. "That is why they came alone. That is why they play this song." The music was still coming through, looping again and again. Each note felt heavier, as if the humans were counting down to something. "Commander, I have a reading," the sensor officer said suddenly. "The human ship's hull. It's not made from any alloy in our records." Koresh stepped closer. "Explain." The officer adjusted the display. "It's older. Much older. Some parts are thousands of years old, repaired again and again, and yet it's stronger than any material we know. A warship built to last centuries, patched but unbroken. That alone was unsettling. But the next reading was worse. "There's something inside the core," the officer whispered. "Something alive." The bridge went silent. "No OES," In spoke. The idea of a living being inside a ship's energy core was madness. No species could survive that much radiation and heat. No species. Except maybe one willing to do the unthinkable. Koresh's claws tightened on the railing. "Keep scanning, but do it quietly. I don't want them to know we're watching." But the humans already seemed to know everything. The ship shifted slightly, as if turning its attention directly to the alien flagship. Lights along its hull began to glow, soft at first, then brighter, pulsing in perfect time with the music. Without warning, the music stopped. And in the silence, a new signal came through. It was a single human word spoken clearly and without emotion. "Run." The bridge crew froze. Some looked at Koresh, waiting for him to laugh it off. Others glanced nervously at the star map. Then the scanners lit up. "Commander," the sensor officer shouted. "Multiple energy spikes, planet-side. They're huge." Koresh's eyes snapped to the display. From Earth's surface, giant thermal blooms were erupting in multiple locations. They were too big to be missiles, too slow to be ships. "What are they launching?" his second-in-command demanded. The answer came seconds later, massive objects breaking through the atmosphere, tumbling into space. At first they looked like debris, but then they stabilized, revealing long black shapes. "Mass drivers," Koresh whispered. "They're firing." "Rocks?" The first projectile passed near the fleet without touching it, but even at a glance Koresh could tell, anything hit by one of those would not just break, it would be erased. His second-in-command turned to him, voice low. "Commander, should we retreat?" Koresh looked back at the lone human ship. It was still drifting there, silent now, watching. No weapons fired, no threats made. But in that stillness, Koresh felt something he hadn't felt in centuries. He felt hunted. The first strike. The silence in space was heavy. Every alien officer on the Spear of Vera held their breath, eyes fixed on the drifting human warship. It still hadn't fired a single shot, yet its presence was louder than any weapon. Then, the rocks came. From Earth's surface, those massive black projectiles tore upward, glowing faintly from the heat of re-entry. They weren't guided missiles, they weren't advanced plasma weapons. They were simple chunks of metal and stone the size of buildings pushed into space at impossible speeds by electromagnetic mass drivers. Koresh had seen kinetic weapons before. They were old technology, crude by Council standards. But these were different. They didn't just move fast, they moved too fast. Faster than the fleet's defense computers could lock on. "Impact in 30 seconds, the sensor officer shouted. Koresh's second-in-command barked orders. "Raise shields, target the projectiles." Dozens of alien ships opened fire, sending waves of plasma bolts toward the incoming rocks. The first few shattered into fragments, but even the fragments tore through the smaller ships like spears through paper. One cruiser vanished in a sudden bloom of light. Its core ruptured instantly. The bridge shook as a shockwave passed through the flagship. A mass driver slug had missed by only a few hundred meters, but the sheer force cracked armor plates like dry bone. Koresh gripped the railing. "All ships, evasive pattern Sigma 12. Now!" The fleet scattered, engines flaring, but the humans had planned for that. The lone warship moved at an impossible angle, cutting across the battlefield like a predator circling prey. It made no attempt to dodge incoming fire. Every shot aimed at it simply missed. "Commander," the weapons officer stammered, "our targeting systems are locking on. But the ship isn't there when we fire." Koresh's claws dug into the metal rail. "They're predicting us," he muttered. "They know where we will aim before we do." And then the humans struck. Not with their mass drivers, not yet. No, their first real attack was surgical. A single burst of energy lanced out from the small ship's side. It wasn't bright, it wasn't loud, but the moment it touched an alien destroyer, the ship simply went dark. No explosion, no fire, just silence and drifting wreckage. The bridge crew stared at the dead ship in horror. "What was that?" someone whispered. The sensor officer's voice was shaking. It was targeted at the core. They shut it down instantly. No one on board could have survived. Koresh realized something chilling. The humans weren't trying to destroy the whole fleet at once. They were choosing which ships to remove one by one, like pieces in a game they had already won. The comms crackled. It wasn't Captain Ward's voice this time. It was another human, a woman. Her tone was cold, almost bored. "Test over. Next phase begins." Before Koresh could react, the human warship vanished again, this time reappearing inside the fleet formation right between two Council cruisers. The cruisers didn't even have time to turn before both erupted in simultaneous bursts of flame. The human ship was gone again before the shockwaves faded. "Commander," the tactical officer cried, "we can't track them. Every time they vanish, our systems register. Nothing." Koresh's second-in-command turned to him. "This is Slaughter. We need to regroup." But Koresh didn't answer. He was staring at the main display where new contacts were appearing. More mass driver slugs rising from Earth's surface. The humans hadn't sent their fleet yet. They were still fighting with just one ship. For the first time in centuries, Koresh felt his stomach tighten. This wasn't war. This was a demonstration, and he had no idea what the humans would show next. Fury ignites. Koresh Vathal had seen ships burn before. He had heard the dying screams of crews as their hulls split open in the void. But never, not in 100 campaigns, had he seen in an enemy fight like this. The human warship had disappeared again, slipping away like a shadow between stars. The battlefield was a graveyard now, drifting with the wreckage of ships that had been proud only minutes before. And then, Earth itself woke up. "Commander, new contacts, hundreds of them," the sensor officer shouted. Koresh turned to the star map and felt his breath catch. From behind the curve of Earth's surface, dark shapes were rising. At first he thought they were more ships, but no, they were too large, too slow, too fixed. "They're orbital platforms," the officer whispered. "Massive ones." One by one, the black towers emerged, unfolding like mechanical giants. Long barrels extended from their frames, each the size of a council battleship. Energy rippled along their lengths. The comms came alive again. Captain Ward's voice was calm, but different now, colder, heavier. "You came to teach us fear," he said. "Now we teach you." Without another word, the platforms fired. Koresh had seen energy weapons before, but these weren't energy weapons. They were kinetic. Massive slugs of reinforced metal screamed into space, moving at speeds his computers refused to calculate. Shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. When a slug hit a council cruiser, it didn't just pierce it, it erased half the ship in a single impact. The sound of impacts echoed faintly through the spear of Vera's hull. Not real sound, just the vibrations from shock waves slamming into them through space. The alien fleet scattered, but there was nowhere to run. The platforms fired in perfect rhythm, each shot timed so that the fleet's evasive maneuvers would lead them directly into the path of the next slug. Koresh's second-in-command grabbed the railing. "Commander, we must retreat." Koresh didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the tactical display, where something even more terrifying was happening. The human warship was no longer fighting at random. It was driving the council fleet toward the orbital platforms, herding them into the kill zone like prey. This wasn't chaos. This was precision. And then, in the middle of the carnage, the humans did something Koresh didn't expect. They stopped. The guns fell silent. The warship halted its attacks. The battlefield went quiet except for the drifting debris. Koresh frowned. "Why have they stopped? We are vulnerable. This is when they should finish us." The answer came in the form of a new transmission. Not from Captain Ward, but from a civilian channel. The hologram flickered, showing images that froze Koresh where he stood. It was a human colony. Or rather, what was left of one. The buildings were shattered, the streets flooded with rubble and ash. The faces of survivors, burned, bleeding, terrified, looked directly into the camera. "This," a human voice said, low and steady, "is New Geneva. 3 months ago, it was home to 5 million people. Your people destroyed it. Your council called it a necessary action. We call it murder." Koresh's claws tightened on the rail. He remembered the orders. He had not been there, but his fleet had been part of the larger campaign. The council had called it strategic control. The human voice continued. "You think we fight for territory. You think we fight for power. You are wrong. We fight for every face you see here." The screen shifted, hundreds of images flashing past. Children, families, the dead and the living side by side. That was when Koresh understood. The humans weren't fighting because they loved war. They were fighting because they loved their own. And when someone hurt what they loved, they became something unstoppable. The hologram faded. The guns stayed quiet. The humans had given the aliens a choice, one last, silent chance to leave. But Koresh's pride was a dangerous thing, and deep inside, he knew the humans had only shown the beginning of their fury. The breaking point, the bridge of the spear of Vera. was quiet, too quiet for a battlefield. The alien crew stared at the empty black between the drifting wrecks, waiting for the next human shot to come. But no attack came, no sound, no movement. The humans had stopped firing. Koresh could still see the orbital platforms hanging over Earth like giant steel spears, their barrels glowing faintly from the heat of their last shots. They were still aimed at the fleet, but they were holding. It was a message, clear, sharp, and almost insulting. We can destroy you. We choose not to. His second-in-command stepped forward. Commander, they are giving us a chance to leave. Koresh's jaw tightened. You think I will run? That I will crawl away before their eyes? The officer hesitated. If we stay, we die. Koresh looked at the crew around him, veterans who had followed him through decades of war. They had seen him stand against enemies that would have crushed lesser commanders. They had believed in him. But now, he could see it in their faces. Fear. Not the kind that comes from facing death, but the kind that comes from realizing you are already dead and just haven't fallen yet. The comms crackled. A human voice spoke, not Captain Ward this time, but an older woman, her tone calm and heavy with authority. This is Admiral Rena Cole of the Terran Defense Command. You have 30 seconds to leave Sol space. If you stay, your ships will not be buried. There will be nothing left to bury. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that pressed into the chest of every alien who heard them. Koresh's pride fought against his reason. 30 seconds. If he ordered a retreat now, the humans would remember him as the commander who fled. But if he stayed... His claws gripped the railing. All ships, prepare to advance. The bridge crew froze. Commander, his second-in-command asked, eyes wide. We do not turn our backs to an enemy, Koresh said, voice like stone. Signal the fleet, we charge. The order went out, engines flared to life. The alien fleet began to move toward Earth, weapons charging for a full barrage, and that was when Koresh saw it. From the far side of Earth's moon, a shadow emerged, so large it blotted out the stars behind it. At first, Koresh thought it was a station. Then it moved. The scanners screamed with impossible readings, mass displacement off the charts, energy levels beyond anything the Council had recorded. The ship's design was ancient, blocky, scarred, layered with armor that had clearly been replaced hundreds of times over. The humans had not built it recently. This was an old warship, a relic from a time before the Council's dominance, and yet, it was alive. The comms lit up again. Captain Ward's voice returned, quiet and steady. You wanted to see our fury, Commander. This ship has not left port in 2 centuries. We called her Nemesis. She exists for one reason only. Koresh felt the air on the bridge grow colder. And that is? To end wars before they begin. The Nemesis raised its primary weapon. The barrel alone was longer than Koresh's entire flagship. It did not glow with energy. It did not hum. It simply pointed directly at the center of the alien fleet. Koresh's second-in-command whispered, if it fires. Koresh already knew. If it fired, nothing would remain. The humans gave no countdown. There was only the sound of the comms cutting out, the lights dimming on the alien bridge, and the dreadful realization that they were standing in the path of something built not just to win battles, but to erase the idea of resistance entirely. Koresh had seconds to decide, and the humans were still watching. The final blow. The Nemesis did not rush. It hung in space like a sleeping giant, yet every alien on the Spear of Vera felt its presence pressing down on them. The ancient warship's hull was blackened with scars, its surface patched and repatched over centuries. This was not a ship built for beauty. It was built for the single, merciless purpose of ending fights. Koresh's second-in-command stood frozen, his voice shaking. Commander, what do we do? Koresh's claws tightened on the railing. He wanted to say fight. He wanted to say advance. But the truth was, in the shadow of the Nemesis, words like fight and advance felt hollow, childish. Without warning, the Nemesis's main cannon lit up, not with fire, not with plasma, but with a deep, blinding white light that seemed to bend the darkness around it. The alien bridge went silent. Even the hum of the flagship system seemed to vanish, as if the entire battlefield were holding its breath. Then, it fired. The shot was almost soundless. A single beam, thin and pure, cut through space. It passed directly between two alien cruisers without touching them. At first, Koresh thought the humans had missed, but then the cruisers tore apart, split perfectly in half, drifting away from each other in absolute silence. No explosion, no flames, just clean, surgical destruction. Every alien on the bridge understood instantly. This was precision on a level no council fleet could dream of. The humans weren't showing power, they were showing control. The comms opened again. Captain Ward's voice was calm, but Koresh could hear the steel beneath it. "We could have erased your fleet in one shot. We chose not to, remember that." Koresh swallowed hard. For the first time in his long career, he realized this wasn't just about survival. It was about what would be remembered after this day. The Nemesis moved forward slowly, positioning itself between Earth and the alien fleet. Its hull lit up with hundreds of smaller weapon ports, each one locking onto a different target. "Commander," the tactical officer whispered, "every single one of our ships is in their sights." Koresh's second-in-command stepped closer. "Sir, if they fire again, there will be nothing left." Koresh stared at the giant warship.
The humans were giving him the same choice they had given earlier, but this time, he understood the weight behind it. They weren't asking him to leave out of fear. They were asking him to leave because they had decided to let him live. Pride burned in Koresh's chest. So did shame. He had led his fleet here believing he was the one with power. Now, power belonged to the humans that he gave the order at last. "Signal the fleet, retreat." The words felt like broken glass in his throat, but he knew there was no other choice. As the alien ships turned away, the Nemesis did not follow. It stayed in orbit, silent, immovable, watching them leave like a sentinel guarding its home. Koresh could feel the eyes of the human crews on his back as his fleet limped out of soul space. It was not the feeling of an enemy's gaze. It was the feeling of a judge, deciding whether to forgive or condemn. He knew this truth now. Human fury was not wild. It was not blind. It was precise. It was patient, and it would only ever be unleashed with purpose. Fury's true face. When Koresh Vethal opened his eyes, he was not on his flagship. He was lying on a narrow bed, wrapped in a soft blanket. The air smelled clean, faintly like salt and rain. A steady, rhythmic beeping came from a small machine beside him. He turned his head slowly, and froze. The room was human, white walls. A window showing a view of a bright blue sky. Through it, Koresh could see the curve of a coastline, waves breaking gently against the shore. A door opened, and a human woman entered. She wore no uniform, only a plain white coat. Her dark hair was tied back, and her eyes were sharp but not unkind. "You're awake," she said simply. "Good. You were lucky." Koresh's voice was hoarse. "Where am I?" "You're on Earth," she replied. "Medical facility, Pacific Coast." She checked the machine beside him, then looked at him directly. "We treated your injuries. Your crew is alive. You'll all be sent home once you're stable." Koresh blinked at her. "Why?" The woman tilted her head. "Because we are not what you think we are." Later, they brought him to a large hall. It was not a prison, not a courtroom. It was a meeting place, humans and aliens together, speaking quietly. Some of the aliens were his own officers, sitting with cups of hot liquid in their hands, their eyes lowered in thought. At the far end of the hall, Captain Ward stood waiting. "You wanted to understand our fury," Ward said when Koresh approached. "You saw part of it. But you didn't see the whole." Koresh's voice was low. "Then show me." Ward led him outside. They stood on a high cliff, overlooking the remains of New Geneva, the human colony the council had destroyed months before. The ground was still blackened in places, but there were signs of rebuilding. foundations laid, walls rising, children running between them. Human and alien volunteers worked side by side, carrying supplies, planting trees. This, Ward said quietly, is what our fury protects. Koresh watched in silence. The humans had been burned, attacked, nearly broken. And yet here they were, not only surviving, but rebuilding. Not only rebuilding, but helping others rebuild, too, even species who had fought against them. That it was then Koresh understood what made humans so dangerous. That it wasn't just their weapons, that it wasn't just their tactics, that it was that their fury was born from love. When Koresh returned to the Galactic Council weeks later, the chambers fell silent. Every eye turned to him, expecting a report of victory or defeat. He stood in the center of the great hall, his voice carrying across the room. Do not provoke the humans, he said. Do not test their patience. Do not harm what they love. Because when they fight not to win, but to end. Some scoffed. Some dismissed his words. But Koresh knew the truth. That in the cold darkness of space, he had seen countless wars.
But only once had he faced an enemy who fought with such precision, such control, and such unshakable will. He would carry the memory of that day for the rest of his life, the day he saw the true face of human fury, and he prayed to every god he knew that he would never see it again.